machine. If I bring this stuff, can I pull one of you out of the audience and have you build the machine? Well, no, we're not talking about that machine. We're talking about this machine. And can I sit there on the bench with you and go over it with you and over it with you until this light bulb turns on?
Please. I'll be your guinea pig.
Hey, let me tell you, once the light bulb turns on, you'll be looking at more than this. You'll have all kinds of This is the original SG motor, and you can see it has 7 devices, multi-strand coil. This is an Allen battery on the input of the machine. So I'm going to start this machine. All right, and then what I want you to do is watch what's going on here very closely. The circuit is arranged so that a bridge rectifier comes off the branch here of rectifiers and then goes to a bridge. And that bridge feeds this comparator. And you can see the green flash. And you can see what it's doing to the output battery. And this is about once every second. It's a 1 amp machine. So this is set to 1 ampere only. And of course the pulse builds up. The comparator decides between this battery and the capacitor when to fire. And so it does this continuously. So all of you that are building SG machines, you're going to have to start out at 120 milliamps to understand the principle of this machine.
I've got the power! Hey, yeah!
Like the turn of the whip, I snap attack, front to back, in this thing called rap. Feel like a shovel, rhyme double on a heavenly level. Bang the bass, turn up the treble. Radical mind, day and night, all the time. 714, fly the line. Maniac, radiac, winning the game. I'm the lyrical Jesse James.
One of the biggest monopoles we've ever built. It's 12 feet high, and the wheel weighs close to 300 pounds.
Wow.
With this added weight on both sides, probably 450, because the magnets are very heavy. This is a steel-backed plate.
What is this in the middle?
That is a self-regaging, idling magneto, which means that if it goes above the speed that it's rotating at right now, it generates to put power back to help recharge. But then you have the master and 2 slaves on both sides. And all these coils, I want everybody to understand that everything is paralleled in this system. All 3 coils are in parallel, which means they're all hooked together. Now, what you're actually watching here as it runs around here is this piece of equipment right here has to supply 42 pounds of torque to turn the wheel.
I got a little bump in front of me here, stand by, we'll
Come on. You can feel the airflow. The wheel weighs about between 250 and 3, maybe 400 pounds. You will have this little thing hanging on you that will never let go of you. Once you see it. See? It's hard to see it right now because you don't have your hands on it, and even though you're looking at it with your eyes, it's hard to believe that that's even happening in what John said. But I got one guy here that came up to me during the book signing. I call him the Whipley Schriever man. So why don't you tell them what you discovered?
What I discovered?
Yeah, we want to hear from you.
I didn't know I discovered anything.
Well, you did. You came out there and said, hey, look, I found out.
Well, yeah, we built an SSG, and the first time we ran it, and I sat there and stared at the meters, I had that light bulb moment of knowing reality. I guess that's how I would describe it.
Yeah.
As opposed to, it's a theoretical construct, someone's trying to tell me something I need to understand, or I need to believe something, or any of that. Yeah, because in our particular case, we had a load running off the charging battery, and once it adjusted to that load, it just sat there. And we were running 350 watts, about 400 milliamps of load, a lamp, a laptop, a bunch of other stuff. And I just, like I said, there was just that moment where I got chills, because I knew unequivocally that this is what was going on. I didn't understand all of the mechanisms of the spike and all the rest of it, but at another level I didn't really care. I just saw what was going on, and the meters were not going down, and it was a beautiful thing. And I actually called John's house, because I got his phone number, and left a voicemail, and just said, thank you.
You really did. I know that feeling. When 40 years ago, I saw that. Now, the kit circuit board, which is going to be this kit right here, is exactly to the lab machine built according to the patent. Now, what the patent has told you is that it's capable of recovering all the wasted energy in the machine and putting it to a second battery. And that's exactly what it's doing. So, if you're pushing high current with this, you're not going to get this effect. You're going to be left out in the cold, and you're never going to achieve a COP of more than 65% if you're doing that. Because then that means that you're just heating up these devices for no reason. The machine is not about pushing current. It's about no current and how you can charge something without the current based on Tom Bearden's original theories. Okay? This is a mimic of the original 1984 Watson machine, only it's changed around so that you don't have to use a DC drive motor.
So regarding this question of clean energy, I think you and I both agree that it is being suppressed for a variety of reasons. What would you say are the main reasons why this technology isn't being allowed to go out there despite its awesome usefulness for the problems that we have?
Most of these patents have been classified for one reason. The reason is that if the free energy was released to the public, it's going to collapse the economy because the energy sector is a very, very large part of the economy. What truly is the reason is that those who control the energy sector don't want to lose their power and income. So we are being denied these technologies just because somebody wants to get paid.
I mean, look at Tesla and Stubblefield since 1899 and how they were attacked and suppressed. You know, by now we should already have our flying cars, anti-gravitic devices, and our zero-point energy devices for everyone. Well, it's about money, and it's about ego, and it's about control. You know, they want to protect their intellectual properties. They want to protect their secret devices, whether it's aircraft or a healing device or whatnot.
I met a scientist who has since sort of taken himself out of circulation. He's vanished. His name was Mark Cummings. He was a physics professor working as a teaching assistant at UC Berkeley in their physics department. And he'd become aware of the fact that in the basement of the physics building on campus was a lot of this old surplus equipment, frequency generators and oscilloscopes and you know, power generators, all these different kinds of things. And so he asked the head of the department if he could go down and just, you know, tinker and do some experiments. He had some ideas he wanted to play around with, and they gave him the okay. So he had this this idea that, as you may know, there are certain kinds of crystals, like quartz, for example, that it's the whole basis for the original photograph record, the stylus. When you would put a small crystal, I think it was like a diamond crystal, under pressure, it would create a mild electrical current. And if you amplify that current, you could then hear what the impulses were coming through that stone, that gem, and you could actually hear the vibrations that were recorded in a disc of plastic. That's how the photograph worked. And so his idea was that, okay, crystals, when they're put under pressure, physical pressure, will create an electrical charge. But he wondered if you augmented the process by putting electrical coils that wrapped around the crystal, and you essentially applied an electrical pressure to the crystal, that the crystal would do not only the same piezoelectric process of creating an output of electricity, but that it might actually be more than what you would get with just putting physical pressure on it. That by taking advantage of the lattice, the crystalline structure of this object, this stone, that you could then get it to resonate in a way that would kick out even more energy than you were putting into it.
That has to do with the technologies they're suppressing that we need to help each other and help the world. Because if we had all these technologies, we wouldn't need gas, coal, and oil. We wouldn't be fighting each other. You know, we'd be more, as a conscious collective, trying to help the planet and help each other. And that's where I'm trying to shift this just in education alone.
Who authorized you to disclose this?
There was no authorization for me.
No individual
No
from
individual
above?
ever came to me. I just knew what I could and could not say since day one, and I'm doing it. There was never a phone call from a corporation that says, oh, well, you can do this. I never had a call from my ex-commander saying, da-da-da-da-da.
Well, what if you said the wrong thing? Who would come down on you?
I would not know, but you guys would know because I'd be dead.
It could be that serious
Oh, absolutely.
if you said the wrong thing.
Well, if I said the wrong thing and maybe slipped up a couple times, I'll get a slap on the hand. And who's slapping me on the hand? Well, you know, they might take, you know, a family member's life, my best friend's life, maybe my dog, just as a little message. So these threats are real. And, you know, I was working on some things, and maybe I was saying some things I shouldn't have been, not on TV, by the way.
Right.
Just on the phone with other colleagues. And they sure did come down on me.
Do you know who they might be?
It's, you know, it's definitely a clandestine major corporation that has intellectual property that I might be affecting.
It sounds like you know who they are.
Well,
And for obvious reasons, you
they're a
can't
very
disclose.
large entity, and it's made up of major corporations all over. I don't know specifically who they are, but I just know that, you know, they're out there because I have been warned. I have had, you know, text messages and phone
They mean
calls
business.
and things where, you know, they're calling me up. I mean, one time they drove by my house in a white van. The two guys in tactical outfits got out, waved their MP5s at me, and just pointed at me, and then I knew I might have did something or said something to someone I shouldn't have.
Were they wearing masks or anything like
Oh,
that?
yes, absolutely.
Oh, they were.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Just wanted you to know that if you stepped outside of the boundaries, they know where you live.
Oh, they do. There's no hiding from any of these. You cannot hide from these things.
And so he had a barium titanate crystal. It was about 8 inches long, double terminated. In other words, a point on each side. Had a cross section that was kind of like a stop sign, sort of an octagon shape. Had it fabricated by a facility outside the San Francisco Bay Area where he lived. And he had two different coils. One had a lot of fine windings, and another coil wrapped around the outside of it, all completely insulated, that had a lower number of windings. And he experimented with putting a variety of different electrical charges, different voltages, frequencies, and different combinations until eventually one night, about 1 o'clock in the morning, working late on this apparatus, the crystal began to glow a bluish green, and it began to ring. You know how when you're at a wedding and you take your glass, you wet finger on a champagne glass, and it makes that high-pitched ringing sound? He said it was like that. And he looked at the scale, the dials on his equipment that showed input voltage and output voltage, and this thing was putting out 125% more. In other words, everything he was getting plus an additional 25% over and above what he was putting into the crystal. Of course, he was very excited, you know, took his notes, shut everything down, went home, went to bed, and by 8 o'clock the next morning, his house was surrounded by black SUVs and guys with earbuds and dark glasses. They kicked in the front door. They tossed the whole house. They arrested him. They confiscated all his notes. They confiscated his equipment. And the reality of the whole thing was that he had created an apparatus that had accomplished what is supposedly impossible. And I asked him, I said, when you did this, when this thing finally worked, when you found all of the right ingredients to make it work, do you believe that this thing put out some kind of a footprint in the environment that someone in the know was listening for and were ready to clamp down on? And he said, absolutely, without a question. He said, somebody triangulated my position, found out where I was, found the equipment, got hold of the administration of the university, and they were at my house by 8 o'clock the next morning. That's how fast it was. And so he's gone into hiding, and I've heard that he's, you know, working somewhere in the Far East. You know, he's well-funded and, you know, continuing his research, but all underground.
They are not really worried about me talking about extraterrestrials, talking about my experience in underground facilities. They are upset about me moving forward, talking about future technologies before it's the right time, which I can understand a little bit, because a lot of these technologies could be used not for the betterment of mankind. So we have to be very safe. But I still need to educate people about that. Yeah, we have these answers, okay? And they're trying to be, you know, slow on releasing. They don't want the iPhone 20 out right now. They want it to slowly release these cures and release these devices and the information. You know, but since I've come forward, there's been 15, 20 different devices that have come out since November, because I just slipped a little bit about the information about it. And the corporations now are all over the IPs trying to get these things out. So they're listening to these shows, and they're listening to what I'm saying. And they're kind of sick of it too, because, you know, they have someone over them making sure this doesn't happen. But when someone like me comes along and starts talking about it, well, then they have to do something. And they're either going to have to make money off it or completely bury it. And they rather make some money off it and release, saying, well, yeah, what he said about this is a little bit of truth behind it, right, the science. So they're upset. The attacks are coming at me because really it's more about that than it is with the ET stuff. They don't care whether people believe ETs exist or not, because there's no money in talking about ETs.
Well, Corey, this is a very emotional thing for me, actually, because, first of all, I knew Mark Cummings before he went into hiding. We actually spoke on the same stage at a conference I was doing in Portland in 2003 called Time of Global Shift. And he wouldn't tell me what he had invented that caused these guys to come to his house. So seeing McCandlish go into detail about what the invention was a first. I had not heard, I just heard about the bad part. So let's talk about that first. Is there, in fact, some sort of energetic signature, like Mark and I also talked about personally, that we theorized had been released when you build one of these types of devices that they could detect?
Yes, and that is how they track also a lot of the non-terrestrial and human craft within our solar system. It is used as a way of doing air traffic control to be able to locate the vessels producing this signature. There is indeed a signature that is put off in a limited spectrum that they are always listening for on the Earth and also in space.
Is there any place safe in the world for somebody to develop this technology, or could the cabal hit you basically at any geographical location on Earth?
When it comes to developing it, yeah, there are plenty of deep, dark holes you can hide in to develop it. And you have to acquire everything that you're going to use, all of the different types of technology. You have to acquire it very quietly. If one person starts acquiring certain technology, red flags go off. So you can find a place secure to develop it, but the minute you're successful, they're going to know because of this energy signature that they can pick up.
Right.
That's why they watch these people very closely. Very important that they develop a personality profile on them so they can decide which way to approach them. Some people, you know, the almighty dollar, if they go and offer them $1 billion, they'll sign over the patent very quickly. Others who are more principled, they have to threaten their families, they have to lean on them, and sometimes ultimately these people will die of strange cancers, heart attacks, strokes, suicide.
It sounds like you're describing a different type of what John Perkins wrote about in his classic book, Confessions of an Economic Hitman. And he called it the gun or the money campaign, where he'd walk in with a gun in one hand and a bale of cash in the other and say, I'm giving you one of the two of these before I leave here. Which one do you want?
Yes.
Same basic idea, huh?
Same basic idea. And I mean, if it's going to work in that situation, humans are so much the same, they're going to be able to use it, you know, for, you know, the free energy sector as well.
They're concerned about planetary issues that affect their pocketbook.
Exactly.
What keeps pushing you, Emery, to tell the public about disinformation?
Well, what drives me is the fact that I was involved with technologies that need to come out, and they're suppressing technologies with disinformation, saying they can't make this technology yet. Oh, we can't do this yet. That's impossible. Smith, what's he talking about? Zero energy devices. I mean, we're so far away from that, but we're not. We're like so more advanced than this. And since I know the truth, I want to expose that truth for these technologies to get out and help clean up the planet and help cure the world of disease and famine and get, you know, clean, potable water to the world. You know, people are just waiting to have fresh water, for God's sake. So it's these things that drive me to come here and sit next to you and educate the world.
Another story that Mark Cummings told me was that in another group that was aware of this kind of thing happening, they tried to build a free energy device where each component was built separately and the plans were kept separate. And then only right when they were going to test it would they have each of the guys bring a different piece of the machine together, build it on the spot, test it, then break it down and take it away. But even in that situation, he said they still got popped.
Well, it's easy because there are satellites that are covering almost every square inch of, well, every square inch that is important on the Earth. So if they came together real quick, put this device together, turned it on, and then the powers that be got the signal ping on their device, they call it a ping, and then these people take apart the device and then scoot. Well, they're going to be able to go and rewind just like a videotape where this satellite was tasked at what time, and go to the right satellite, find the footage, and then track the people back where they came from.
It's very interesting that Mark Cummings is describing the crystal glowing. So I'm curious if you ever witnessed glowing crystal technology in any of the stuff that you saw.
I saw the scientists working with different types of crystals and stones and stuff, and I saw very small crystals that were square, obviously man-made, glow when a field was applied to them. And there were nothing physically was touching them. So yeah, I've seen that.
If they give you, let's say, billions of dollars and you take it, do they then kill you later, or do you actually get to live out your life?
Very quietly live your life, probably on a remote island.
I'm not the only scientist out there that can do this. There's hundreds of thousands of amazing, bright people that have come to me with the most amazing inventions that just blow my mind. But at the same time, they're scared to come forward, which I understand.
You've got the guts to do it.
And I'll do it. I'll speak for you. I'll get up here. You know, everyone knows, I'm coming out here and I'm going to represent you guys, and you don't have to do it if you're not comfortable yet. And I recently just have a few scientists come forward and some more insiders making preparations for their families to come forward and talk to you and I. So it is affecting people, what we're doing here and talking about it, because it puts it out into the ether and it makes these scientists feel a little bit more comfortable. And, I'm still here. So let's do this. Let's do it together and let's get it out.
I consider you a patriot.
Thank
I
you.
was at an event a couple months ago, and a couple came up to me, and they said, "What do you think of Emery Smith?" And I had already interviewed you on Beyond Belief on Gaia. And I said, "I think he's the real deal. He's got more guts than most humans because he's putting his neck on the line. At any moment, that neck could be chopped off. But there's nothing that would stop you, is there?"
They've taken everything from me, George. Everything. I've been shot, stabbed, tortured, kidnapped. I mean, I'm not going anywhere. They know it. So I'm here, and I'm going to keep going as long as I can. And thanks to viewers that you have and that Gaia has and other individuals who stand by me, it motivates me to keep going. And I have nothing to lose anymore. I don't have anything. So I'm here to represent those people that do have the fear, because I have no fear, and I am not stopping. It's better to be truthful to the public, especially about what's really going on out there. But if you're using it for your own benefit and to dumb down the public, then I think it's like the most horrible thing you could do to a civilization by suppressing them and holding them up.
Like a small boat on the ocean, sending big waves into motion. Like how a single word can make a heart open. I might only have one match, but I can make an explosion. And all those things I didn't say were wrecking balls inside my brain. I will scream them aloud tonight. Can you hear my voice this time? This is my fight song. Take back my life song. Prove I'm what I saw. My power's turned on. Starting right now, I'll be strong. I'll play my fight song. And I don't really care if nobody else believes. Like a small boat on the ocean, sending big waves into motion. Like how a single word can make a heart open. I might only have one match, but I can make an explosion.